All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast. On today's episode, we're going to talk about former Avalanche players that we just wish it worked out a little bit better for them in an Avalanche uniform. Not necessarily a guy that played only one season, could be a guy that played a handful of seasons, but you just wish he had a longer career in Colorado. So we'll talk about that on today's episode of Locked On Avalanche.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in and making this your first listen of the day. That's always appreciated. Make sure to follow us on social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche, on Twitter, Locked On Avalanche, on Instagram, questions, comments, concerns, and opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com, and follow us over on our YouTube channel. Over on YouTube, hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. Definitely subscribe to our subtext as well. Link to that is in the show notes below. Subscribe and chat with Kyle and I one-on-one. All right, sir. Today's rundown, we have a couple more of the network-wide polls that we administered or took part in, and we're going to do the top logos in the league as well as mascots. And I think some surprising results here that we'll get to a little bit later, as well as when we were going through in yesterday's episode, we were talking about records and things like that. Could any be broken? There were a few that we didn't bring up that are kind of like fun and pretty much impossible to break. So we'll bring those up as well, because why not? It's kind of fun. But where we're going to start is, like I said in the opening, is, it's just the nature of sports. Players come and go, and sometimes you get attached to a player and you're happy that he's playing for your team, and then he's gone. And it happens so much more now in sports, because that's just the free agency period in which we live in. And that's why I've always said, like, I try not to get attached to players anymore, because chances are they're not going to be there for their whole career. The Kobe Bryants and Derek Jeters of the world don't happen much anymore. So having like these guys come in and you liked what they brought, you thought they were a good fit, you liked rooting for them, and maybe they stayed a few years, but eventually they left, and you're like, man, I really wish it worked out for him. But first of all, your thoughts on what I was saying, like, why is it? I mean, I know it's just a free agency, but you figure every once in a while there would be a guy who would just want to hang around for the duration of his career with one team because it means something, but it just doesn't anymore.
I think Sidney Crosby is going to be the last in the NHL. Like Nathan McKinnon, Sidney Crosby, too. Ovechkin.
Yeah.
Like Nathan McKinnon's kind of locked up for a while. I think he might be the one that Sid passes the torch, but it just kind of doesn't happen anymore these days. Like sports, the loyalty is gone. It's a dollar-driven sport, and you're driving up the market for all of your peers. So that's just how things have gone. So, yeah, I kind of miss those days of your nickname in retirement is synonymous with your team. You are Mr. Yankee. You are Mr. Reds. You are Mr.
Right.
Like, those days are gone.
I think with McKinnon, I think he could be, and we don't know, because we don't know where the Avalanche will be on the downside of his career when he's got maybe like 2 or 3 seasons left to play. How we're talking about with Sidney Crosby, if Pittsburgh maybe isn't doing it for him, he goes somewhere else to get like one last hoorah. But that doesn't seem to be the case anymore now that Kyle Dubas is there. He's going to turn that thing around. So the Crosby thing ain't going to happen now, because he'll make sure that they are a contender.
Yeah.
So if it does happen with someone like McKinnon, it would be in that realm where it's at the end of his career. If the Avalanche are a terrible team during that time, he says, hey, let me go somewhere, like Drillman Iginla style. Let me go somewhere to try to win it, although that didn't work out for him. But that is way down the road, and I don't want to think about that right now. So, but let's think about what has happened in the past, and who are some guys that you did root for that they were playing for the Avalanche, and then they weren't. And like I said, you look back and be like, man, I really wish that he had a longer tenure with the Avs.
Yeah, it would be a no-brainer, and this is where I'm going to start. Super Joel Colburn. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's Paul Stastny. The way his career started out, like, we kind of forget with the whole Nathan MacKinnon, Gabe Landeskog era of Avalanche hockey. We forgot he started out just white hot, had 70 plus points in his first year, had a 20 game point streak at the age of 21, and he was consistently over 60 points per season. And when he left Colorado, he never found his footing in that 60 plus 50 point range, and he was just never the same player after he left Colorado. And we were talking yesterday with team records. If it wasn't Michel Goulet, it was a Stastny getting a team record. So it was just, I would have loved to see him be a kind of that lifer that we're talking about, like right. Mr. Avalanche. It just would have been fitting, blending the Nordiques history and the Avalanche history with two prolific players. And it just didn't end that way for Paul.
And he was becoming that guy. Like, he was the face. He's becoming the face of the Avs. It was, Sakic wasn't going to hang around much longer. Forsberg was gone. Hayduk was coming towards the end. Like, so he was the one that everybody thought the torch was going to get passed to, and he was kind of taking it early on. And then obviously just didn't work out. But yeah, I agree. How many seasons did he end up playing for the Avs? You got it.
His last season was 2013, 2014, and he started in 2006, 2007. So yeah, about 6-7 years.
Played a handful of seasons, and you're right, man. Like that's one that for the duration guy. Like you would have liked to see him be that and go through all this stuff. That would have been nice. All those guys that, when they finally won the cup, and we're talking about the guys that hung around for so long, that went through the down and then up. If he was added to that list, it would have just made it like so much sweeter. So like he would have been there longer than anybody.
He just left the Knights to go to the Hurricanes. For goodness sake, Paul, come home.
I mean, that's not a bad choice to go to Carolina. So, yeah, I think, when you talk about two guys, they just go hand in hand, and that's Teemu Selanne and Paul Kariya.
Yeah.
They kind of were seeking out the hot team to go win a title before it was cool type of guys.
Yeah.
And, that didn't work out. And I think that just goes to show you it didn't work out then. And so sometimes when guys do that now in today's day and age, it doesn't always work out too. You get these like super teams, and it sometimes just doesn't go the way you expect it to go because it's just not a fit. And the season that they had with the Avs didn't go well. And I think everybody just kind of like threw in the towel instead of maybe like they both signed 1-year deals instead of trying to say, hey, maybe it takes a little bit more time. Let's go another year or two, see how this goes. I think everybody was just like, no, it's just not the right fit. So let's just cut our losses now and move on. It would have been nice to see those guys a little bit longer in Avs uniforms.
And see, if you take the time machine with me, everybody put a battery in your Tamagotchis. First season of Smallville, here we go. And this is just 2 years removed from the Ray Bourque project.
Yeah.
You finally got Ray Bourque, his Stanley Cup. And both Teemu and Paul were looking for that Stanley Cup. And at the time, we mention it here, the Avalanche effect. That's what the Avalanche effect was at the time. Like, yeah, it was a proven, like, Ray Bourque got his cup. This is where you go with this roster. If you want to get a cup, this is where you go. And I mean, everything going into that season, they were awarding the cup to Colorado. Like, it's a no-brainer for it. They had the ESPN The Season with James Hetfield and Metallica being the narrator for that documentary.
That's right. Yes, it was. Yeah.
And injuries just, ironically enough, Colorado Avalanche and injuries that happened in 2004 as well. And it held that team back, and they just could not get going that year. And it was just it was not the ending that they thought they would have. And Paul Correa found success. Other places never found his cup.
No, I think you're right with the Ray Bork thing. It's like, hey, it worked.
Yeah.
It worked for him. So yeah, come on over here. We'll get you a championship. And it just goes to show you how difficult that can be. So you can get the names, and they were names at that time, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah, Paul Correa.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, Paul Correa would have been my other one because he is one of my all-time favorite players that, like, you don't really think as an Avalanche player. Like, that's my white whale jersey. I want that Paul Correa Avalanche jersey hanging up somewhere behind me because he was one of my favorite players. And when he came to Colorado, I thought it was just a perfect moment in time. Fast forward to Nazem Kadri, and I got burned again. I will learn one day. But no, you would have loved to see him hoist the cup in burgundy and blue.
Absolutely. A couple more that I had. More recent, two guys more recent. One is Brandon Saad. I thought he had a really good season with the Avs. I would have liked to see him stay around. Evan Rodriguez is much more recent. That's just more of, loved when they brought him in. Would have liked to see him, a year under his belt, and the year that he did have with the Avs was a solid year. Just, that comfortability, I would have liked to seen that come into play for him. And my last one is a guy that I've thrown out here a couple times. He didn't set the world on fire. He was just one of those like workhorse guys, and that's Sven Anrigetto. Always liked the guy. Always liked him. Good speed. Wasn't the biggest guy in the world, but when he was out there, he was Logan O'Connoring it every single shift, and had a short, but I thought pretty good. And I'll keep going back to saying, like, they protected him during the Vegas draft. So they must have had some plans for him if they didn't want Vegas to take him away. But he just never got more of an opportunity with the team. And if he played on a team that went through what this last Avalanche team with all these injuries, and he was one of those guys that stayed healthy, he would have seized the opportunity. And I think we're talking differently about Anrigetto, but I just always liked watching the guy play. I thought he worked so hard.
Yeah, if I had to give my honorable mention, my favorite Avalanche player that nobody ever talks about, Francois Beauchemin.
You do.
And wouldn't it have been nice to see Devin Dubnyk do something in a Colorado Avalanche sweater? No, just
would
kidding.
It have been?
I had to bookend it with Super Joel Colburn and Devin Dubnyk.
You just put a stain on this whole segment. Man, wow. Yeah, I can't come up with word. I get the
it's
move.
One of those things you always have to remind everybody that did happen for
it did, and I get why it happened, but it was just like, really, like that was the best one you could do. But wow. All right. Is there anybody out there like could you put EJ on this list that it worked out? I mean, it worked out great for him, but it would just in winning the cup. But it would have been just like finishing his career with the Avalanche. Just would have been like,
Burakovsky and Donskoy.
Yeah, there's so many guys that you can say for different reasons. It's not just tenure. It's not if it's a short tenure or a long tenure. Just for whatever reason, you could have a reason. If he's just your favorite player and you didn't want him to leave, that's a lot of people for Erod right now. Could be for JT Confer. So anybody out there, there you go. Okay, that you wish it worked out differently for a former Av, fire away in the comment section. Definitely want to hear what you guys have to say. All right, let's hear from Birddogs, and then we'll get into some more records talk. But Birddogs, they make you look good, and the Birddogs are a stretch khaki short. Do you have yours around? I mean, I don't know if you're there. They are. Kyle has piles and piles of birdies. He uses them as a pillow. When the ones he's not wearing on his bottom on his UBI.
Ooh,
there you go.
Day-to-day, baby.
Lower. His lower body, not in lower body region. How about that?
My LBI attire is on my UBI.
Bird Dog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but they fit way better. And they also fit way better than regular shorts because those are made out of a stiff, restricting cotton. And Birddogs fixed the issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that look just like khaki, but they're stretchy. So they give you a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice on movement. And Birddogs uses the anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. So go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL under the promo code LockedOnNHL, and you get a brand new white hat. Do you have the hat, or I don't have the hat? It's over there. Don't. Yeah,
it's over there.
But it's if you're a golfer, perfect golfing hat.
Great fit. Great fit.
So you get that with your order. Once again, birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL, promo code LockedOnNHL for the free, they call it a white tech hat. And you won't want to take your bird dogs off. You won't want to take the white tech hat off. We promise you that. All right. Let's jump back into some more records talk because these are more like fun ones that we'll get to. And let's see what we got here. I wanted to do, we could do with the point streak. Let's start with that one.
Let's
point
do
streak
it.
for a player. So Matt Sundin, for when they were the Quebec Nordiques in 92-93, had a 30-game point streak. Through that, he had 21 goals, 25 assists for 46 points in those 30 games. Paul Stastny, there's your boy, is second with 20, and then Peter Stastny has 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 locked up. The closest to this was Nathan MacKinnon in 20 and 21, had a 15-game point streak. It's just one of those things where it's just, do you think this could ever happen? I don't know if this could ever happen. This the way the game is played. It's just tough. It's like baseball. It's tough to keep a hitting streak going anymore. That's why when a guy gets to like 20-game hitting streak, it's a big deal. And that's why last year with Mitch Marner with the Maple Leafs, he got to like 20, 21 games or something like that for a point streak. It was a big deal. And it just doesn't happen where it goes that long. So I don't see this. It's definitely going to get broken this year, and I just wonder if it ever will.
It's it's really hard with how the NHL season is constructed. We complain every year about back-to-backs and 3 out of 5 games, and it's just the roster construction. And by the way, look around you. There's not really any bad teams in the NHL. Like even Arizona Coyotes give you a fight every year.
Right. Yeah.
So you can't go in there and you have your 1970s, 1980s Washington Capitals team that anybody, me and you, could go in there and score 3 goals on the Capitals in those days. There's a lot more of an even playing field. So to string together a 30-game point streak,
yeah,
that's a challenge. That's a real challenge.
That is crazy. I like this one. Fastest goal from the start of a game. And this is one that this could happen any game. This is one of those ones where it's a total opposite of a 30 game point streak. Any one of 82 games, this could happen at the snap of your fingers. You have no clue. The record for the Avs was in 2005, 2006. And I'm so sorry. This guy's just a ghost to me. I don't remember Antti Laaksonen. I don't remember him for the life of me. And he played a full season and a half for the Avalanche. He scored a goal in 8 seconds in 05 and 06. That was against Columbus. So Randy Mueller
scored a goal. That's 8 seconds.
Yeah.
And I went looking back. I do not remember this player, and I do not remember this start of the game.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember the game either, but they won the game 4-1. So the game was pretty much in hand almost after 8 seconds. Joe Sakic's on here. He's number 3 at 9 seconds. But the current Avalanche, like a lot of current Avs players, are peppered all throughout this. Nathan MacKinnon is number 5 on here with 11 seconds. That was in 2018. They ended up losing that game to Calgary in overtime. Mikko Rantanen is number 8 on here at 14 seconds. That was on my birthday this past year. The funny thing about this, You go down the list a little bit more. Nathan McKinnon, well, Gabe Landeskog's at 13. He had one at 17 seconds back in 2017. Nathan McKinnon had another one at 19 seconds. That was February 24th, 2023. So on that game, Nathan McKinnon scored on 19 seconds. 3 days later, Mikko Rantanen scored in 14 seconds. And this goes back to what you were saying yesterday about the competition between those two. So Nathan McKinnon scored one in what was it, 19 seconds? What did I say it was? Yeah, 19 seconds. And then 3 days later, Mikko Rantanen bests him. There was some ribbing going on there. That's the stuff that you like to see. I love that.
And could this be broken again this year or in the foreseeable future?
Could be. You have no clue. It could be. Could be on the first game of the season.
Ooh, you know what? I would love to see this one shattered this year. One of those, like, you don't even get through the first line introductions and then there's a goal.
I mean, the butts aren't even in the seats, and the horns are already going off, and the fans are like, "What the heck? We got to get to our seats. Stuff's already happening." So that just gets the crowd, especially if it's a home game, clearly. But yeah, you have no clue when that one could happen. And if anybody's saying here like, "Oh, that can't be beaten this year. No one's going to beat that." Why not? Why not? It absolutely could happen, and I would love to see that one happen. But 8 seconds is quick. You got a clean face-off draw, which the Avalanche in history have not been so good at, and just bam, 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 you're in the zone, done.
As JP said in Angels in the Outfield, it could happen.
It could happen. It could happen. So we got fastest goal. What else we got here? A single game, they've scored 12 goals 3 different times. They haven't done it since 95. So they did it in 83 and 84. Both of those games were 12-3. One was against Hartford. The other was against Toronto. And then in 95, they did it against San Jose. That was 12-2. And I don't think we were sitting here feeling like the Avalanche can score 12, even 13 goals. But you would like to see them. Can they hit the double-digit mark this year? It's been a little while. I can't remember the last game that they did, but they have the offensive ability to do it.
And you mentioned the Nashville game yesterday. And it felt like everybody was scoring in that game, and it felt like it was an impossible, daunting task to get double digits on the board. That's how it usually feels when they get 7, 8, 9. To get double digits feels impossible. And I would love to see a double-digit Avalanche final score. That would just make my heart so happy.
I mean, people, they take notice when it happens.
Yeah.
Right? Like because it just doesn't happen a lot. So when a team does score 10, it's just kind of like a footnote. They're like, holy crap, the team scored 10. Like, what went wrong in that game? But again, it's the same reason I was talking about yesterday. It's you usually take your foot off the gas if you're blowing that team out. So it just needs to be a game where the other team is also putting up some goals. It doesn't need to be like, goal for goal. But if you got 8 and they have 4, and then they get another one and it's 8-5, okay, maybe they're going to put in another 1 or 2 here, just to put it away.
And the Colorado Avalanche, I mean, this is kind of a blessing and a curse, but they have not been in a place where they have to have a statement game to catch the attention of the league.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to do a double-digit final score to catch the attention and be like, whoa, what are the Avalanche doing? No, we have hardware to prove it. We have Cale Makar and Nathan McKinnon that commands the attention of the league. So, and with the injuries that they have going on all the time, if you're up 8-4, you're short shifting and letting the third and fourth lines play a little bit more.
But it's almost like, if you don't, I mean, getting 10 is a big deal. But I mean, remember, what was it, game 2 of the Cup final against Tampa?
Yeah.
I think it was like a 7-1. So like 7-1 in a Stanley Cup final is equivalent of 10. Yeah. If you're, you know what I mean? Like that shouldn't happen in a Stanley Cup final.
That's playoff math, baby.
Right. A couple more to get to just in terms of streaks. An overall winning streak for the Avs is 12. That was in 1999 and in 2018. And then a home streak and an away streak both happened in 2022. The home streak was 18, and the away streak was 10. So, and that's one thing that we I don't think gets brought up enough about the Avalanche is their road record. Like, they were a great road team last year, almost better road team than home team last year. But, they were still a very good home team, obviously, if you're winning 18 in a row at home. But you think they could make a go at either one of these? You're going to get a streak from the Avs, whether it's, an overall streak or just I don't know, home record or away record or winless or not, or whatever streak you want to bring up. You're going to get streaks. But could they reach these levels? That's a lot. Oh, can't hear you. Fix your mic again. I don't know. I you never know with this. I think most people lean towards like, no, it's tough to maybe looking overall. Could they go on a 10 game, like run off 10 games in a row? Sure. Definitely. They could do that.
Yeah. And you kind of hope for one of those magic Januaries where
Right.
everything just really is rolling for this team, because there's a lot of new faces on this team. So it's a lot to ask right out of the gate to put things together real early, but you never know.
Right. So fire in the comment section on that as well. I think any of these could be broken, more records, maybe a little bit more difficult ones, but still fun nonetheless. All right. One last thing we want to get to, and that's a couple more of our polls that we did over here at the Locked On Podcast Network. We did defensemen and goalies yesterday. And today we're going to do logos and mascots. So who do you want to do first here, sir? I'll leave it up to you. Logos?
Give me the
mascots?
logos.
You want the logos? You shall get the logos. There's the top 5 if you're watching on YouTube. Number 1 is the Detroit Red Wings. Number 2 is Arizona. I'll get to that in a second. Number 3 is Toronto. Number 4 is the Penguins, and number 5 is Seattle. I don't have a problem with the majority of these. I would rearrange them a little bit. I am just one of those people that is not over the moon about Arizona. I know people love this thing, this Kachina look that they have going. It's cool. I don't hate it. I just don't think it's one of the best logos in the league, but year after year, people think that it is. And I know I'm in the minority feeling that way.
You are, my friend, because I think the Kachina is one of the coolest logos in sports.
Really?
It's just,
it doesn't,
you look at it, the sport, and it's distinct. It's very distinct. It places your city wherever the Coyotes are. And it's just a good look. Like, out of all of these, it's very distinct. It stands out. It's bold. Everything else is traditional. And I'm surprised at number 4. I think the Robo Penguin was my favorite Penguins logo.
That's a good Penguin logo.
But
and I think that's me. Like you said, the word like traditional. Like I am more that style. And that's why I'm okay with Seattle. I think the Seattle one is just they did a great job of combining like a modern look with a traditional sense. So I think they did a very good job compared to that other franchise, new franchise that came out, expansion team that's god awful. But for me, like full disclosure here, number 1, I voted the Rangers. I think that's just classic. And number 2, I put Penguins. I love the Pittsburgh Penguin logo. I think it's fantastic. It's a penguin playing hockey. Who doesn't love that? It's genius. It's fantastic. I do like
so
the
good. Their minor league team uses it.
They do. Yeah, you're right. I didn't even think about that. For the Avalanche, I'm sure everybody's wondering where they are. So you had 5, and despite me despising the Vegas Golden Knights logo, they came in at number 6. Calgary was 7. Avalanche were 8. And I'm kind of happy with that because I've been seeing a lot of websites that do this, and almost all the time the Avalanche are in the 20s, like mid to low 20s. So our hosts seem to like our logo. They even beat out the Bruins. That's just a classic logo.
It's classic.
Bruins are next on the list. Towards the bottom here, you care to guess who the worst one is?
Vancouver.
No, they're down there. They're 5th from last. Very last is Columbus. And that was my vote for the worst.
I missed that
don't get it.
B.
Yeah, but they don't.
Columbus B. I love that.
I like the Columbus, the cannon.
Oh, that was a great
Use
look.
that. Like
Yeah.
I don't know what this thing is that they have, but it's I don't like it. And towards the bottom, right above Columbus, you have Washington. Next is the Islanders, which I kind of like the Islanders look. I don't mind it.
Oh, it's no fish stick. Give me the fish stick logo.
Well, that was kind of funny, but the regular Islanders logo, I'm fine with it. Then you have Dallas was down towards the bottom, which I agree with. It's kind of just bland. The Flyers are pretty low, which I kind of found a little bit surprising, but yeah, even Montreal is kind of down there too.
It's a toilet seat.
It's like the Chicago Bears one. So, so there you go. And Red Wings at number 1. Don't have a problem with that. That's just, it's been around forever. So that's a good one. And the last one we'll do here for today is the Mascots. Gritty at number 1. No surprise there. New Jersey Devil at number 2. Really no surprise there. Bernie at number 3 for the Colorado Avalanche. Color me shocked on that one, but I love it. I think Bernie is a great mascot. He's a great mascot. He obviously does what he's supposed to do, gets the crowd involved, but he does some funny things. So I think that's surprising coming at number 3. Howler from the Coyotes is number 4, and Wild Wing from the Ducks is number 5. So, I mean, when we're talking mascots, it's going to be very difficult to unseat Gritty because he is one of the best mascots in all of sports.
He is the San Diego Chicken of the NHL. He transcends the sport. Like, he's everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, Gritty nails it. The New Jersey Devil is just like funny, like hysterical with some of the stuff they do with the New Jersey Devil. And Bernie is the perfect marriage of mascot to team. Like, it's brilliant. And Bernie, he does great. Love the little bone for his jersey
number. Yeah, that's great.
But Wild Wing is classic. I would put him at 4. I think Wild Wing is just epic.
That is really cool.
Honestly, until this list came out, I forgot Howler was the Coyotes mascot.
I remember, like, I didn't forget, but it wasn't like I threw him towards the top. He's just kind of like a normal looking, like, coyote.
I'm surprised that treasure troll that they have in Seattle isn't like number 4 or 5.
Again, full disclosure, I put him last. I cannot stand that thing. I love everything Seattle has done. Their arena is state of the art. Their colors are perfect. I talked about their logo. Even their name is great. They completely missed the mark with their mascot. That thing is terrible. I mean, I've said it when it came out. Remember the Ewok Adventure movie?
Oh my word!
It looks like the monster in the Ewok Adventure movie. Go Google that, people, and tell me it doesn't. That's all I see when I see him. I just don't get it. I think that's a terrible looking mascot. Sorry, Kraken fans. And this is not me being bitter because you guys beat the Avs in the playoffs. I was saying that when they announced him. I was like, what the heck is this thing?
Yeah, I'm very vocal about how great everything Seattle has been. Logo, arena, how they're building the team. And they completely missed with the mascot.
But I'm looking to see where he's kind of up there. He's in the top 10. 2, 4, 6, 7, 8. He's 9. Bowie. He's a good name. I'll give you that.
Good name.
It's a good name. It's a good name. Other than that, everything about it is wrong.
I'm surprised UP's not up there. It's legendary.
That is 10.
10.
Yep. UP's 10. Al the Octopus is 12 for the Red Wings. On the bottom feeder, Carlton the Bear for the Leafs, Hunter for the Oilers, and Stormy the Ice Hog for the Hurricanes. Nordy for the Wild is down there.
That's right. They have a literal pig in Carolina. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So there you go. There's your top 5 mascots. I'm just smiling because Bernie's on there. I think that's thank you to the hosts of the Locked On Avalanche podcast. Or not the Locked On Avalanche podcast, the Locked On podcast
from the Locked On Avalanche
there
podcast to the network.
Thank you so much. So, all right, everyone, that is going to wrap it up for today. Very much appreciated for having everybody tune in, making it your first listen of the day. Friday's episode, very fun one in store for you guys. We have Zach, who is not a host of a show on the Locked On Podcast Network. He hosts it's called the Mile High Bourbon and Rye podcast. So he's in Colorado. He's got a podcast all about Colorado bourbon and just bourbon in general. Big Avalanche fan. He talks about the Avalanche on his show, talks about the Nuggets on his show. So he's going to come on and we are going to talk Avalanche hockey, how he, follows the team, how long he's been a fan, all that fun stuff. And then we're going to do some fun stuff with pairings with Avalanche players and bourbon. It's going to be fun. I guarantee it. So that is going to be on Friday. Can't wait for that. All right, everybody, that is going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for tuning in and making it your first listen. He is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. Make sure you tune in Friday. It's going to be a good one.